You say that decentralized exchanges are becoming the new systemically important financial centers.
Software can do things easily. You have banks doing one function, you have brokerages doing another function, you have clearinghouses doing another function. But today in our world, the exchange is the bank, it is the brokerage, it is the asset management platform, it is the borrow lend money market. It's everything in one.
How far are we from traditional financial centers becoming irrelevant?
Yeah, so
Anand Gomes, the CEO and co-founder of Paradigm and Paradex.
At Paradigm, he built crypto's leading institutional options marketplace.
And with Paradex, he's bringing Wall Street on-chain.
Tell me something about yourself that can help me and the audience trust more what you'll tell us today.
I think the one reason to trust us is there's very deep first principles thinking that goes into every single thing that we do. And that is reflected in the quality of things that we do. And once you've used a product and you feel that quality, it becomes easier to trust somebody.
Can you briefly explain Paradigm?
So Paradigm is an institutional options exchange. Think of us as the wholesale market or B2B market for options traders. If you're a large institution and you're looking to trade crypto options in large size, Paradigm is the platform to go to.
Paradex charges 0 fees?
That's right.
Why?
What happened in TradFi will happen here. It is inevitable. What Robinhood did to traditional finance in terms of basically not charging retail customers, but making money by other means, we believe that's going to happen in crypto. So the why is pretty easy. The how is the tough part.
That's the next one. How does Paradex make money if you charge 0 fees to traders on your platform?
Oof.
Hi everyone. This is the little bit that I know none of you like that can help us make a huge difference for this show, and we want to take it next. 71% of the people who regularly watch When Shift Happens have not subscribed. And so all I'd ask you, if you want to make a huge difference, is the following. If you've seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team, hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue to build this show for you. Thank you.
More, I forget everything. Kind of like, I mean, it's basically the side effect of anxiety, right? Yeah. Like you start to forget things, you can't talk straight anymore, your brain doesn't really work anymore. And so what I do is I would do, if I have like 5-6 podcasts in a day, I would do only matcha.
You do 6 podcasts in a day?
I did the last, in Token, we did 16 and I did 6 on the Wednesday. Today is the third one. Jesus. So I would do 1 shot of coffee, max. And then I would do 1 matcha before the first one, and then 1 matcha now. Shit. The matcha is very good too, right? More smoothies. So you said that you're not having fun. I'm having fun, to be honest. I'm having much more fun than exchange founders. I'm actually very happy to, maybe media is not going to be the billion or multi-billion dollar business, but when pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's
so long as our partners survive.
Survive.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so it's like I'll take the downside for you. I dig it. I dig it.
You take the downside, but you also take the upside.
Well, yeah, no risk, no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's been fun 48 hours. That's for sure.
How are you doing?
Good, man. We're I think there's this Lindy effect. You know, this is people talk about the Lindy effect. We're living it. So
what is Lindy effect?
Lindy effect is this thing in crypto where people, the longer you are around, the more likely it is that you will continue to be around or survive, right? The kind of like the anti-fragile mindset, right? So I think, but that all makes sense as a theory, but living it is the difficult part, right? So when you're going through Black Friday as of this Friday, that's living through it is a scary thing. You have to, I feel like you have to be cut from a certain cloth to be able to like live that and be like, yep, I want more of this, right? And I don't mean it in like a, I don't mean it in like a patting myself on the back kind of way. It's just like in some sense you have this realization at some point. Not that, it's not an ego thing, if that makes sense. It's more of like this realization that like, oh, holy shit, I can see now why this is not for everybody, right? And I think that part gives you conviction and more strength too in some sense. So yeah.
Yeah, this applies to entrepreneurship in general. This applies to entrepreneurship in crypto. Crypto highly volatile,
yeah.
But also it applies to investing in crypto.
That's true too, yes.
If you from the last 5-10 years, everyone should be rich.
Yep. In
But
theory.
most people are not.
Yes.
Right? And so that's the reason. It's because you need to survive. It's kind of almost cliche. You just need to survive and then you'll make it. But it's it's easier to say than to do.
Yeah.
Survive.
It's way. I mean, we live it every day. I've been through so many cycles now, and I can tell you, it's like, it's like if people think it gets easier. I mean, in some sense, it does get easier. You're more experienced, as you're going through it. But when there's so much money on the line and it's other people's money, that stress is, it's a different type of stress, right? Because you're like, holy shit, if something goes wrong, so many people lose money, and people are going to lose money regardless because of the volatility, right? But then losing money because the exchange is down or something like that, a mistake you did, that guilt kind of like, it says that pre-guilt kind of like weighs on you.
And it can kill your entire business. If we look at 2020, when the COVID crash happened, that's when BitMEX went from being BitMEX, which was it was basically the king of perps, right? And basically this killed them, literally.
Were you around when Deribit made that chocolate where, orders on the chocolate, they gave it out to their users, but on the chocolate it said the BitMEX order submission error was literally impacted. It was like a trolling thing that they did, right?
I didn't see that.
But that's like that. But that's effectively it. Is you're trying to submit orders and you're getting this, like, BitMEX was famous for having this problem. Whenever the market ripped or dumped, you just couldn't get an order in, or you couldn't get your money out, right? And so other exchanges benefited from that. Bybit, I think, in some sense, has built their entire business on just being open for business when BitMEX was not, right? And then they stole a lot of clients. So yeah, to your point, it's like it can either make or break you, and some exchanges have used that as an opportunity.
You said you have to kind of be built different. Where does it come from for you that you're built different? That you love the pain so much that you continue every day and go deeper and deeper?
I think, I think it's more about, to me, at least personally, I feel like my personal calling for this thing, to build this thing, outweighs anything else. And when times are like tough and you're going through it, there's always this sense that you're working towards something that is bigger. And as long as that thing is bigger, your pain or whatever, it's another bump in the road. So for me personally, it's always been that I know I have this calling to do something that is much bigger than me. I've always been called to do it. I've always felt that. I feel it's stronger now than I did 6-7 years ago because my understanding of it is better. And I think as long as that equation holds, you will put yourself, because think about it, right? If you don't have a sense of higher calling, no rational person will be like, okay, I want more of this, right? It almost has to be, in some sense, some irrational source of bigness, or it's a delusion too. Some, founders are famous for being delusional too. And that's a struggle. You're fighting yourself, right? Is this delusion or is this calling? It's a fine line.
Am I smart or am I a fool?
Yeah, exactly.
You never really know.
Yeah. So
I mean, at some point, hopefully the ultimate KPI, the money, the revenue, the profit, kind of shows you if you're a fool or if you're...
Yeah, it's a quantification of value, right? So absolutely.
Who are you?
I'm Anand Gomes, founder CEO of Paradigm and Paradex. Paradigm is an institutional liquidity network. It's the largest institutional liquidity network in crypto, specifically focused on options. So on any given day, we're about 35% of Deribit, which is the largest options exchange. And about 2 years ago, we decided to, embark on our second rodeo, as if one was not enough, and start Paradex, which is a decentralized perpetuals exchange.
Not enough pain.
Yeah.
Give me some more.
One was not enough. I had to go in for round two, so, and it's not just my mission anymore. It's our team's mission, right? So when I first started Paradigm, I was, by myself, then my co-founder came on board. So it was a very small group of people. But for Paradex now, it's a much wider group of people, right? So the mission and the team has morphed in kind of a very nice way.
Quick one. I want to thank our partners who help us make this show possible. I'd like to thank our friends at Jupiter, the most used decentralized trading platform on Solana and the largest DAO in the world. Thank you to our friends at Paradex. It's official Perps DEX season, and we've teamed up with Paradex, the leading perpetuals decentralized exchange with zero fees, deep liquidity, and privacy. Their season 2 runs through the end of January, so you do not want to miss that one. In addition, their flagship NFT collection drops in Q4 this year, and we're giving you a chance to get one. Supply is limited, so hurry up and use the link below to get on the waiting list. And last but not least, thank you to Mental, a pioneering on-chain economy dedicated to revolutionizing the future of finance and blockchain scalability, and that seamlessly bridges traditional finance and decentralized finance.
Tell me something about yourself that can help me and the audience trust more what you'll tell us today.
We are, I think the one reason to trust us is there's very deep first principles thinking that goes into every single thing that we do, right? Whether that's building product, whether that's even small things such as building our merch, right? Or throwing an event. We think through things with such depth and intent. And that is reflected in the quality of things that we do. Most people that either use our products, use our merch, as you know, we've shared with you before, that quality, that depth of thinking, that care comes across in a very tangible way. And once you've used a product and as soon as you use it and you feel that quality, it becomes easier to trust somebody, right? And I think that's, whether it's Paradigm, whether it's Paradex, I mean, Paradigm did 5.4 billion on 24 hours on Friday. Is the largest. It was our all-time high by like a long shot, and was no outages. Everything just works smoothly. Touch wood. So again, that goes into like the hours and hours and days and years of iteration and thought that has gone into that system, right? So I would say trust me or trust us because we give a shit about what we're doing. And that was reflected in the quality of the things that we put out.
What do I have here?
Our merch. It's very, it's very, very, very nice to see. Oh, and here too.
Well, it's just because it's so good. I just use it all the time, every day now.
There you go.
My girlfriend uses it too.
There you go. That's pretty awesome to hear.
You're the co-founder of Paradex, Decentralized Exchange, and soon to be much more. We'll talk about that later. Crypto exchanges are known to make a lot of money. What's less known is the cost of being a founder of a crypto exchange. I think you wrote the other day, you said you have to love eating glass every day.
It's true.
What's the thing that people don't see about being a Brian Armstrong, a CZ, or an Anand? Because we see the 5 billion in a day or all these other big numbers, but what we don't see is what's required to get there.
There's a lot that happens behind the scenes, right? A good example, I'll walk you through what happened Saturday morning, right? As soon as after the carnage or during the carnage, first of all, you're woken up at all times of the night, right? So the whole team was up. Right, not just me. So I can't claim credit that I'm dealing with this myself. The whole team is up. As you're going, when the team is up, you're on a call, monitoring the system to see what is happening. The first call from the time that people got on, we didn't stop. This was like early wee hours of Singapore morning, right? Let's say 4 or 5. Our team didn't stop that call until 3 p.m. that afternoon. Right? Just making sure, first, obviously, the initial carnage was, hey, is everything okay? Second is, okay, what is the damage? Third is, okay, how do we get the exchange back fully operational? Thankfully, we didn't actually go offline. We didn't have an outage. Of course, the exchange was slow and, issues with orders and stuff like that, but we didn't have an outage. And there's no ADL, thankfully. So our users, our insurance fund held up, but nonetheless, we had to like go, we were on that whole time, and we didn't get off the call until 3, and then took a break, and then we had another call at 8 just to make sure, right? And then that call went for another couple of hours. Thankfully, the exchange was fully operational by then. And then, of course, on Sunday, again, same thing, just like a precautionary measure. We were just like all of us always on all the time, monitoring. And that's just one weekend, So this can happen anytime. And so you just have to always be on. And that's just the incident response that I just talked about. Not talked about dealing with our users, right? And this is people's money at the end of the day. And however irrational they might be acting at that time, you have to be able to be very objective about this fact that they are right? They are kind of irrational in a rational way, right? I mean, I have this, I'm guilty of this is too. It's like sometimes I feel like I'm getting kind of agitated because people are asking too many questions, and I say, no, this is their right. This is their money, right? And our mission is always to empower, basically unlock financial freedom in the world, but it starts with people's wealth, right? And if that wealth is at risk, then, those people are going to be pissed. So I think, dealing with users and community, that itself is a skill. As you can see, a lot of people are getting slaughtered right now on Twitter because of either they didn't respond properly, or, people think taking tweets out of context, and things on the internet can just explode in a second, right? So I think there's that element to it, which you also have to learn as a team. And then of course there's the engineering itself, the product, which that goes without saying. It's just so many exchanges. Even I think people like Binance had massive issues, right? So, and we have to do this. Binance has 3,000 people. We have 5 code writing engineers. So it's vastly different.
I think people really underestimate the fact that, we have these exchanges that we use that are supposed to work 24/7 in this industry. But behind these exchanges, you have humans.
Yep.
And not everything is automated or automatic. And so I had Paolo from Tether a couple of weeks ago in your seat, and he was saying, since 11 years, I sleep 5 hours a night. And every 1 hour of these 5 hours, I wake up to check my notifications.
Yep.
And I was like, why? And he said, Bitfinex.
Yeah.
So it's not the Tether crazy profitable business, but he said, Bitfinex, I'm the CTO of Bitfinex. I need to wake up every freaking hour, and I sleep only 5 hours a night, but I still wake up every hour to check notification if there's a problem with the exchange.
No, it's an exchange. Crypto exchanges are tough business. It's not, like I said, it's not for everybody, right? We have 2 of them. So what does that say about us? So
you found a company called Paradigm, you said, and another called Paradex. Can you briefly explain Paradigm and Paradex, and why Paradex is the next logical step to Paradigm?
So Paradigm is an institutional options exchange. That's the easiest way to explain it. And think of us as the wholesale market or B2B market for options traders. If you're a large institution and you're looking to trade crypto options in large size, Paradigm is the platform to go to. On any given day, we're about $1.5 billion to $2 billion a day, which is about 35% of Deribit, which is the largest options exchange. We have about 3,000 institutions on the platform, but 500 of them are active. 250 of them are very active on any given day, and these are the largest institutions in crypto. So and I started this in 2019. So at this point, Paradigm has become critical market infrastructure for options, right? So if you're an institution, if you're looking to trade size, you're on Paradigm. It's kind of become synonymous with options. Then about 2 years ago, we realized that for Paradigm to grow, we still have a dependency on the centralized exchanges because the liquidity is happening on us. The product is, we're iterating fast on the product, but we still have this dependency on the exchanges because we use them to settle. So we clear on Deribit, for example, and we have this settlement dependency, right? And the exchanges are large businesses by themselves, right? And so we had this problem where if we wanted to iterate on product, we were always being slowed down by the exchanges, not just one, multiple of them, because they have their own roadmaps and stuff, right? So it was slowing our growth down. And so we said, look, if we want to grow Paradigm into a $100 billion business, the only way to do that is for us to be able to also have control over the settlement layer, right? We have the execution on our side, but the settlement, we need access to that, free access to that in a permissionless kind of way. And so we said, okay, the only way to do that is to build our own exchange, right? Instead of building a centralized exchange, we decided to build a decentralized exchange because we said, look, we're in crypto for all the right reasons, because we are basically want to push, self-custody and things like that. So we didn't want to go backwards, in time, and said, let's rebuild another centralized exchange that we can clear on. So then we decided to build Paradex, which is a decentralized exchange. Paradex, very simply, is a decentralized exchange. But it is built on our own blockchain. So we run a fork of public starknet. So it's a ZK-based stack. It's a roll-up. It's a L2 that sells on Ethereum. And today, Paradex is doing about $1 billion and a half a day, something like that. We're top 5 DEX. It's Paradex season right now, as you know. So, the market is quite, very bullish about us. And that's very good to see, because we've been grinding in the trenches for 2 years trying to get Paradex to a good place.
Paradex charges 0 fees.
That's right.
Why?
What happened in TradFi will happen here. It is inevitable, right? In the sense that what Robinhood did to traditional finance in terms of basically not charging retail customers, but making money by other means in a bid to attract the retail customer, so that you open the floodgates, all retail comes to you, and then you become the most kind of like liquid venue, the most profitable venue, because retail flow is good flow. We believe that's going to happen in crypto, right? Lighter is another exchange that has this model. We have this model, and I believe it'll be only a matter of time before more venues basically adopt this model. And the why is pretty simple. It's just like everybody wants retail flow. The best way to basically attract retail flow is to take down all barriers. Fee is the biggest barrier. If I tell you, hey, you have no fees to trade here, but you have the same liquidity, it's only a matter of time until you'll be like, man, I'm losing money trading elsewhere where I'm getting the same price and no fees. I will choose this venue, right? So the why is pretty easy. The how is the tough part. How are we able to do this?
That's the next one. How does Paradex make money?
Yeah.
If you charge 0 fees to traders on your platform?
Yeah. So we make money charging the maker side, right? So there's 2 sides to a transaction. One is the taker side, and let's say the retail takers are coming in the market. We charge them 0, but then we charge makers about 0.3 basis points, right? So effectively, most exchanges today, they have a different model where they pay the makers a rebate, as you might have heard, and they charge takers. We've kind of flipped that model on its head, and we said, look, we charge the makers, but we don't charge the takers at all, right? Now, in a world where we do not create value for makers, then effectively spreads should widen, because makers are saying, hey, I'm getting paid on this exchange, but you're charging me, so I need to widen my spread to accommodate this extra charge that you're charging me right now, right? That would be true, and then that means our prices would be wider. So that means it would be 0 fees and you would have wider prices. But that's not the case on Paradex, right? How we do this is through this technology called RPI, right? RPI is called Retail Price Improvement Orders. And it's a way for makers, it's an order type for makers where they can place orders on the order book without having to worry about being picked off by other professional traders. And this curation of not allowing sophisticated actors in that lane allows makers to quote really, really tightly and pay us a fee in a manner in which spreads remain the same. They pay us the fee and retail doesn't get charged fees, right? So we've basically, a nice easy way to think about it is we've created value for the maker side, and then we charge based on this new value that we've created, right? And that's the how, is how we make money. We make money on, from the makers.
In a nutshell, it's possible to do 0 fees, and have it in a sustainable fashion.
Correct. Exactly.
Because your goal, now let's get into like the meat.
Mm-hmm.
This was more technical. It's interesting, but the most interesting thing is the bigger picture. You have a thesis on physical economy moving on chain, right? And what these DEXs, decentralized exchange, actually are becoming something way bigger than just online casinos, open 24/7, accessible by anyone from anywhere, at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Your thesis is that the physical economy is moving on chain. What does that mean concretely?
Mm-hmm.
If we keep things simple for people who are not necessarily crypto natives in the crowd?
Yeah. So if you think about what is happening in crypto right now, or crypto as a technology itself, it's a logical next step or the logical evolution of software. Software was invented 70, 80 years ago. I don't know the exact, time. But the interesting thing about software is it became, for the first time in human history, it exponentially reduced the cost of operations, certain operations that could be made into software. Let's say calculations, addition, subtraction, copy, pasting, undoing things, right? And it became very clear that, hey, if I want to do this operation, the best way to do this is, instead of me manually doing this, I can just, feed it to this piece of software and I can do it. The costs of this operation are far, far lesser for me to do it in software land rather than kind of hardware land. And so it was the obvious choice. Yes, if I have calculations, I will do it using software, right? Then software became even better. And instead of just tasks like computations, etc., entire functions such as accounting started to move into software. Accounting packages. If you remember back in the day, it was one of the first things to be kind of on the computers back then, right? I remember my dad had an office, and I used to go to this office as a kid. I very clearly remember that the one thing on the computer was the accountants, kind of like using this package. Then software became even better. And so we've now moved from tasks to functions to entire businesses moving, online. E-commerce businesses are a great example of that, right? They have some component of the physical economy because they have to ultimately move merchandise. But the business itself could be entirely online, right? For the first time. And so the difference now is that software in the form of smart contracts has gotten so good that it can now house the entire economy, right? So we move from tasks to functions to businesses. And now the world is saying, you know what? We are now ready to move the entire economy fully on chain, right? And the reason, where ETH comes to play, or where Ethereum is such a critical piece of this, is you need a computer to run the world's software or the world's economy. And so the default, computer is the world computer, and that's what Ethereum is.
Quick one. I want to thank our partners who help us make this show possible. Thank you, Trezor, my favorite cold wallet to store my crypto and make sure I sleep well at night. If you want to order a Trezor wallet and sleep well at night too, you can use my promo code WSH10 to get a 10% discount. Big thank you to Bitwise Asset Management for backing today's conversation. Bitwise is a crypto specialist asset manager with more than $15 billion in client assets across 30 plus crypto solutions, including ETFs, index funds, alpha strategies, staking, and more. However you like to invest in crypto, Bitwise has something for you. Thank you to our friends at Sui for supporting this show. Sui is a scalable layer 1 blockchain that's fast, secure, and affordable, built by previous Facebook developers, and that delivers the benefits of Web3 with the ease of Web2. Thank you to Story Protocol, the IP layer of the internet, for supporting today's conversation. Story is building an open system for creators to register, manage, and grow their IP on chain. Whether you're building words, stories, or characters, Story Protocol gives you the tools to protect and expand your creative universe. To support this show, please check the sponsor links in the description down below.
So What you're saying is that the missing part to have the entire economy online was finance online?
No, it was smart contracts. Smart contracts and basically smart contract-based architectures give businesses a common language to basically communicate on chain and conduct operations on chain in a manner that was not possible in Web 2, right? Most critically, the movement of money based on rules, making things programmable. It's not just money, even messaging, for example. You have one common language now that you can use to communicate, to move money back and forth, and to do any sequence of operations that you want to mix and match. This is not possible, right? Now, because this, now it's clear that this is possible. So of course, businesses have now started to, migrate on chain. So, but what does that mean for, in like a meta sense, right? What it really means is the whole we have the physical economy that is moving on chain. And now you have all this digital real estate that you have up for grabs, right? Because, in a sense, if the physical economy needs a financial center, that means the virtual the internet economy will also need a financial center. Because if you're trying to build a business on it, that business needs to access these markets, issue securities, borrow, lend, invest, etc. Right? Those things, those valuable pieces of digital real estate is what perplexes are, right? Today, like you said, people think they're online casinos, but if you can look past the noise, you can see here that what these things really are the new systemically important financial centers of this new internet economy.
Before we move into that, you say Ethereum is the chosen one, where these new systemically important financial centers, the new London, the new New York, the new Singapore, the new Hong Kong, are or will be. What makes you say that Ethereum is the chosen one?
For any capital markets to survive long term, right, or to scale in a sustainable way, it's not just the aggregation of capital and not just the existence of financial businesses that makes that thing work. You also need very strong law enforcement. You also need security, property laws, etc. Right? If you think about, the analogy to the regular world is Wall Street became massive, not just because it was a concentration of financial businesses on one street and it made it easy for people to, walk into one, do another deal with the other person. It's not just that. It was also that the legal infrastructure in the United States, the security, the enforcement of laws, all of these things also need to happen kind of in a complementary way, right? And I think the best representation of that today in the internet economy is on Ethereum, because Ethereum takes care of security, decentralization, which are again very like governmental type functions, which is like, governance in that sense at a federal level, if you want to kind of compare that. And then it allows businesses, in this case, financial centers or financial businesses, to exist while also availing of great security, great decentralization, great property laws and rights. And this combination doesn't exist yet on any other chain, or at least not to the same degree, right? Everybody's trying to get there, but I think the ecosystem that has it the most or to the best degree is Ethereum.
You say that decentralized exchanges are becoming the new systemically important financial centers, the new London, the new New York, the new Singapore, the new Hong Kong, that powers the world, or this online, it's not online businesses anymore, right? Because online business is internet. The entire, not businesses, but economy moving online is on-chain.
Correct.
Can you explain more how or why you see decentralized exchanges, a Paradex, a Jupiter, become the new London, the new New York, the new Hong Kong, the new Singapore?
The answer to this is also tied to software in that sense, right? Because software has always allowed lines of segmentation to be blurred very quickly between functions, right? Because software can do things sort of easily. And what I mean by that is if you think about London, New York, Hong Kong, Tokyo, etc., or Wall Street, for example, you have everybody doing different things. You have banks doing one function, you have brokerages doing another function, you have clearinghouses doing another function. And the aggregation of all these businesses was Wall Street, was New York, was Hong Kong, Tokyo, etc., right? But today in the internet economy, in our world, banks, the exchange is the bank, it is the brokerage, it is the asset management platform, it is the borrow lend money market system. It's everything in one, right?
Mm.
And so these kind of core financial primitives now don't need to exist as individual entities on the chain that basically, have to worry about talking to each other and then worry about coordination costs. They can now be core financial primitives and be fully composable with each other in one unified system. Now that is insane, right? Because what that means is the TAM of these businesses is now the combined TAM of all the banks in the world, all the brokerages in the world, all the clearinghouses in the world, right? Into one unified entity, right? Or maybe 3 or 4, whatever the top 3 or 4 I think will end up winning in this space too. But that's into one entity. So we're not playing for billions anymore. These entities are, the TAM of these businesses is in the trillions, right?
Mm.
So people say, entities like Hyperliquid are overvalued. I think this is so early, and I don't think people are still fully appreciate the scale of what these entities can be. Now, of course, there's a bunch of noise in things right now with people calling it casinos, etc.
Mm.
But at least we've never lost sight of this fact that, the prize is massive right here if you get it right.
So the logic for these huge valuations or total addressable market is a decentralized exchange, no matter if it's a Paradex, Jupiter, Hyperliquid, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting together the 3 or 4 main functions that Wall Street does, that has in different businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the top of having all these things in one place, they are powering new industries that can't really be quantified because they're new, right? Same as when, I'm always thinking this example is not really right. I took the example the other day by saying Amazon actually became a platform that powered so many new businesses that were possible. You actually took an example by saying New York, Wall Street powered not just businesses, powered industries, right?
The economy.
Like powered the economy. So basically now we have that kind of moment happening again, but
Onchain.
for something much bigger.
Right.
Which is why these exchanges will become the new New York, the new London, the new Singapore.
And you can also see this where like the centralized exchange founders are also on this, which is why they're rushing to build Aster, build Apex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And push, because they understand that they also need to have their hat in the ring, right?
But is it possible for them? I would say, why can't current banks or even current neobanks or exchanges like Revolut, Robinhood, or even Binance become the on-chain New York or on-chain London?
That's a fantastic question. It's not that they can't, but anytime you bolt on a Web3 business to Web2 rails, it's not that it can't be possible. Of course, it's possible. It just means that it's going to be bolted on. If it's bolted on, there's a bridge of some sense. If there's bridge, that means it's cost to run that bridge. And so traffic that's flowing back and forth was going to have to pay this cost, right? And given that Web2 rails are such, legacy rails, like I think crypto exchanges have a bit more of an advantage than, let's say, a Web2 business that, like a banking system, which obviously is still stuck, in the last century. But it's still difficult, right? And these entities, they move very slowly. So right now, I think it's all about speed. Those that are able to figure things out and move fast to be able to either bolt on in kind of like a hacky way, or like, entities like hyperliquid entities like us, like Lighter, etc. They have a chance to build things from scratch and do it in kind of very, efficient way, right? And capital markets has always been about lowest cost, least friction venues that have the most privacy, right? Because by having these things, it reduces the costs of capital formation and increases liquidity and increases capital efficiency. And that's good for everybody. And those markets tend to win always, right? So markets or entities like this that bolt on things will tend to have a little bit extra cost, right? At least theoretically. Now, physically, practically, they can mitigate it in other ways because their distribution is pretty large, right? So that's what I would say. It's not that it's not possible. It is, but it'll just be in a kind of a janky way that's like not as efficient, and that comes at the cost of the customer experience or the cost that the customer has to pay in some way or form.
What happens to the actual traditional financial centers like New York, London, Singapore? Where they become in this new world?
You saw an announcement by all the larger banks that they are looking to build their own stablecoin as a consortium of institutions. And I think that's the answer. It's just like, one, they have also realized, recently that holy shit, this thing is real. It's not going away. And if there's this new world being built, this new digital real estate up for grabs, we need to have our hat in the ring. We need to build some buildings there. So have to have some imprint. And the thing that they can leverage is their existing distribution, because, make no mistake, they have very, very deep distribution all over the world. And so that's, I think they're going to leverage their distribution, and that they're going to leverage their influence, whether that's politically, whether that's lobbying, that's whatever, to be able to kind of carve out what is their slice of this new world that is building, right? But if they don't, because if they don't, they're going to be irrelevant very quickly. I think you brought up the great point last time we spoke, that the banks that didn't offer digital banking when digital banking was becoming a thing very quickly became kind of like, irrelevant, right? Because the younger generation decided to say, no, I'm going to start banking with a bank that understands, digital banking and makes things easier for me, right? Because it's always about catering to that marginal customer, right? To some extent. So I think that's what will happen. Is if basically it's the same thing. If you don't adapt, you will die.
You mentioned before the Wall Street functions: exchange, clearinghouse, asset management, banking. What are the 4 core components of a unified platform like Paradex in this on-chain world?
We've always looked at it as you have 3 components. You have active management, which is trading. You have passive management, which is investing. And then you have money markets, or basically borrow lend, right? Mm. And all of them need to be able to happen from the same account, right? Because you unlock insane capital efficiency if you're able to long, Jupiter perps with Bitcoin spot, because you can borrow using your Bitcoin spot, borrow USDC using Bitcoin spot, all from the same account without having to go to this pool, borrow from this, move it here, etc. Right? So this unification has a lot of power, and because it reduces the cost of access, increases capital efficiency, etc. So
can you just explain these 3 different things?
Yes.
How they're done in the traditional finance? Right? Who does active capital management, passive asset management?
Yeah. So
weighted money market, and how it's basically completely, I won't say dysfunctional, but like not ideal. And now how in on-chain world, everything comes together, and that's why it's so much better.
Exactly. So if you look at an exchange, I'll start with entities because it makes it easier for people to understand. An exchange is actually 2 things. It's a matching engine, and it's a clearinghouse. Right? The clearinghouse sits behind the matching engine, and matching engine allows people to buy and sell orders and find the other side. It's like a finding function. Help me find a buyer, right? But then once the buyer is found, it's sent to the clearinghouse, and the clearinghouse swaps. It's like, oh, you bought Bitcoin and you gave this person money, right? So you have exchanges. So you have basically like matching, or brokering in some sense, and then you have, clearing or settlement on one, right? Then you have basically borrow lend, and banks perform that function. Or you could go to the money markets. In TradFi, there's, the corporate bond market, there's the money market. So you can basically buy or sell high yield bonds. Basically, it's a way for companies to borrow from the market. When they do that, they issue a bond and then they pay interest on that bond, right? And you can buy company bonds or you could buy US government bonds, right? And it just depends on, the risk of the two entities, right? But that in aggregate is the borrow lend market effectively. And of course, the banks also lend to you as a retail person, as a business, et cetera, right? So there's multiple different ways that you can access borrow lend. It just depends on your risk profile, the type of entity that you are, et cetera, right? So that's the borrow lend piece, right? And then there's other financial entities such as brokerages who specialize in not taking ownership of the asset or taking the other side of an asset, but they will help you find the other side, right? And that's typically what a broker does. He's basically saying, oh, you want to buy? Let me go find a seller for you, right? I'm trivializing, but all of this stuff is now obviously automated, right? It's not some physical guy, picking up the phone anymore. And although in some instances that still is, but you have all of these things now, all of these functions, all combined into one entity. Even custodians, for example, right? Because in TradFi, for me to trade on an exchange, I'm not going depositing money on the exchange. I deposit it either with a prime brokerage, which then has an account with the exchange that I trade through, or I have a custodian and then I'm settling these assets directly from the custodian, right? So there's a separation of execution, custody, clearinghouse, like all these different functions are different things. But in crypto, that's not the case, because all of these things are effective. We've removed all the middlemen, right? Crypto has always been about disintermediation. DEXs are like the epitome of disintermediation, because an asset management platform, for example, or an asset management company like BlackRock, that is basically our vaults. Our vaults are like basically the entire TAM of BlackRock. Our borrow lend markets, we will have them soon. That will be like the money markets that I just talked about. And then of course we have the exchange, which is basically the TAM of NASDAQ and CME and all of these things combined, right? And of course banks as well, because you're borrowing, lending, right? So banks, brokerages, clearinghouses, all the custodians, everything wrapped into one entity.
What's some of the biggest advantages for Paradex to become the Onchain New York?
We, not just us, but DEXs in general, we've had the opportunity to build new financial rails from scratch, right? We were not constrained by legacy Web 2 architecture, because that is analog architecture. It evolved from the phone, the broker picking up the phone, and then all workflows were kind of like made for this or modeled after what was analog workflows. Our businesses have been built natively kind of like online, right? Or natively kind of in this new land. So we've had this like, it's extreme privilege to not be constrained by any previous design or constraint in any way. So the first principles thinking that has gone into platforms like us, you will not find in a bolt-on kind of like Web 2 business that decided to go buy a Web 3 business, for example, right? And there's three instances of that are very clear in our design. The first is privacy, for example, right? Versus privacy is enshrined at the tech layer, where we basically like our orders are off chain, so you cannot see them, and B, your positions are kind of on chain but encrypted, right? So all the stuff where you saw people getting liquidation hunted, James Wynn is a great example of this. His orders and positions were visible to everybody. And so, people took advantage of that. So privacy is one. The second one is this unification of margin, right? We have one account on which you can do spot, perps, options, borrow, lend, everything from the same account. You don't have to jump margin pools. Even some of the DEXs out there today, your spot pool is different from your perpetual pool, and you have to move money, and that's inefficient. And then the last is liquidity. We've, because of RPI, I talked about that, a few moments ago. Foundationally, it means our liquidity is better than most other DEXs out there because we've decided to kind of have this tech-based innovation to, it's all first principles, but that those first principles manifest in tech differentiation for us, right? So liquidity, privacy, and unification of margin. Those are the three, that's the trifecta for why we are different than other DEXs.
We're talking about the big vision here. But today, decentralized exchanges are essentially casinos. How do we move from casinos to on-chain financial centers?
I mean, in some sense, they already are financial centers today, right? Because crypto allowed people who didn't have access to traditional financial markets to now participate in speculation, in investing, in all of these borrow, lend, and earning yield on whatever wealth you have. So for this group of people, this is the financial system. This is a financial center. These are financial centers today.
But it's not powering an economy.
But it's not powering an economy. Yes.
Incentivize the yields and trading or investing in speculation. It's not powering industries or new industries or like actual economy that most people who live on this planet use every day and don't even know that the underlying technology is blockchain and that these exchanges are actually these financial centers.
So the way I would characterize this is the way I would characterize this is that it's not that it's not performing these functions, but it's performing these functions for a very small segment of this, of the world. And this is for native Web3 businesses, right? So think of all these companies that have come and issued tokens as a way to raise capital to fund the innovation. And that's, in some sense, the primary benefit of a capital market. You go to issue securities, raise capital, and then you fund innovation and you fund things that ultimately become businesses in the future. That's how Wall Street was. That's how this is today. The only difference is that people don't know yet that this technology exists, right? And so why this is so important and why this is inevitable is because crypto has allowed capital formation to happen in such a cheap, permissionless, and kind of frictionless way that it represents not just an alternative, but like a far more efficient way than any Web2 rails of issuing capital, etc. And so it is only a matter of time until people find out. It's like we're living in the future in some sense, where the future is here. It already exists, but it's only true for a small group of people who are in this sort of like fringe culture. But Web2 has realized this. Businesses have realized this. Hey, I can now invest in these new assets. I can now borrow, lend from these new markets that I traditionally didn't have access to. So to me, it's just a matter of time, and it's my job in some sense. And Paradex founders or Paradex teams building Paradexes, it's their job to basically make this technology available for the rest of the world, or show them that like, hey, this is available. This is not just alternative, but this is far more efficient and it's better for you, right? So I think that's the delta, right? It's just a time thing and an effort thing. But will it happen? Absolutely. I absolutely think it will happen.
How far are we from traditional financial centers becoming irrelevant?
I don't think they will fully be irrelevant because they're just very good at adapting. You can't kill these entities, right? They are so entrenched in legacy financial systems. Well, unless of course they refuse or remain very stubborn to making change. But I don't think they will go away. They will find a way to either come together, build their own consortium, and offer to the customer, because ultimately everybody's competing for the end user. And so if they come together and they say, hey, you know what, end user, you already have your money here, and you don't really need to go to this kind of like new system because I built my own version of this system. And maybe that works for some people, and maybe that doesn't, right? But I think that kind of like healthy competition will remain. And in some sense, I want them to be around because, there's always an enemy that, it gives us, a goal towards saying, hey, we need to steal their lunch, right? because they've been ripping us off for years. And this is our opportunity to kind of like provide a healthier, better alternative to the end user.
You told me speculation is necessary because I was kind of critical about all this casino, right, and speculation.
Mm-hmm.
I understand both sides of the argument, and the smartest people in the industry, which I'm definitely not one of them, know or all say the same thing, which is speculation is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
For this industry to fund actually the industry and for it to develop for us to develop the key infrastructure necessary for like the next iteration of useful products and companies. You come from the finance world, so instead of necessarily talking about our funding infrastructure or whatever, you think much more about price discovery and capital formation.
Mm-hmm.
You say speculation is necessary for price discovery and capital formation.
Correct.
I don't understand that. Can you explain this
Yes.
to me, a normal dude who isn't technical and who just asks questions to people who are much better than me for a living?
No, definitely. When I went to grad school, I had a professor, and I credit a lot of my early kind of curiosity into finance because he kind of piqued it. He kind of like evoked it out of me because he was just so fundamentally good at explaining things at like a really elemental level. And that really got me interested. But he used to always say that capital markets are the economic equivalent of democracy. And that statement has always remained with me throughout, right? And like I bank on it every time I have a first principles conundrum that I'm thinking about, right? I always go back to, my early discussions with him back then. But the crux of that statement is that effectively it is a pure form of democracy, because putting a price in the order book is like casting your vote, but with money behind it.
Mm.
And that is way, way more powerful than casting your vote in a ballot, because you have nothing to lose, right? There's no money on the line. There's no risk on the line. And whenever you have a market, this is, by the way, also why things like Polymarket are so powerful, is because now the previous alternative to, hey, who's going to win the election was a poll. Now you have people putting real money, real dollars behind their vote on Polymarket. And so in that sense, I will weight that way more than I will weight any poll that is out there.
Of course.
Right? And so in this like voting process where people are voting with their dollars, it is also a way to express criticism on either an outcome
Absolutely.
or the price of the value of an asset.
Mm.
And criticism is just speculation, right? But it has a different word for it. But it's basically me expressing a view that I think this will do either well or not well.
Or I want this to do well or not.
Or I want this to do well. But the difference is I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And if there's people, like in any democracy, if there's no criticism, there's no democracy.
Yeah.
Right? So this is why critics are needed and speculation, short sellers are needed to allow a healthy price for that asset to kind of settle at equilibrium, because that is what price discovery is, good price discovery. And when good price discovery happens, then there is good capital formation.
Yeah, that's also why people say that if you, I want to say are not long, I don't want to use this trader term, but if you are not invested, if you don't have Bitcoin, you're essentially short Bitcoin 1x, which means that you're not voting with your money, which is much more powerful than just my words, right?
Exactly.
That I think Bitcoin will win, or that I want Bitcoin to win because I fucking hate banks.
Or people who are critics who want Bitcoin to lose, right? Short it.
Yeah, but I would say shorting is like already too kind of advanced, but for me it's more about if we take exchanges, right? And we kind of understand more and more now that decentralized exchanges are probably more healthy for our industry. I can buy hype, I can buy drip, I can buy at some point
Dime.
the Paradex token. And by doing that, not even longing or short, I just like buy the token spot because I like spot so much. And I cannot buy BNB because I realize that Binance might do some shady shit. Might. I'm not saying they're doing.
But it's a vote.
It's a vote.
It's
exactly.
a vote. It's a vote. And I would even go so far as to say that this ownership economy, and I'm stealing this term from Akshay, who had a really great talk at Token 2049. I just saw it I think a couple of days ago. This Akshay BD from the Solana guy. Yeah. It was an excellent talk, highly recommended. This ownership economy is where markets will move to because there's permissionless asset creation everywhere. And now I can express a view, right? Rather than me being part of the labor class and not being part of the owner class, now it allows me, a laborer, to be a part of the ownership class by simply going and buying this token, right? And to take it even further and tie it to another broad idea you've seen in crypto, these new super brands will be the new network states of the world, right? Is because you have this decentralized network of ownership that doesn't require, physical borders, but the network still exists, right? Bitcoin obviously is the first network state, but every other brand is, I think, is vying to be one of the new network states in this new digital economy, basically.
That's something that you're holding on to, but you know that you should let go of.
That's a deep question.
My favorite question.
That's a very deep question. What am I holding on to that I know I should let go of? I get tied to a certain way of thinking from time to time. And whether that's anchored in the path I want to walk in terms of the product or the roadmap, or there's a certain direction that I want to kind of invest in personally, spiritually, whatever. And I tend to want to optimize towards that goal. And I'm a very determined person. And so when I put my, I put my sight on something, I give it my all, right? And I think this, when I have my eye on something and I want to do it, I have to work very hard to not do that thing anymore, right? And this can be both good and bad, right? It can be a strength when you want to just get things done. But in the business that we operate in, timeframes are so short, and the only thing that is constant is change. You cannot be tied to things too much such that you can't drop them, when the market changes or the regime changes or more information comes your way. And I think I've become a lot better at it now as, I've grown older, been more experienced as a founder, but I still struggle with it, right? It's just like when to be on and follow through and when to say, nope, I think we need to stop, right? But this inertia is something, I struggle with. So I don't have a answer or an instance for you. It's like, I have this thing I'm holding on to or not. For me, it's more about the kind of like the eternal fight that's kind of inside you, right? As a person, as a founder, as a human, where you're trying to constantly be better, and you're trying to refine your own process. And it's just this battle, I think, right? It's just like when to know to continue and when to stop. And I think either side has inertia. And to learn, I want to be better at knowing or learning when to drop things and when to move on, right? If that makes sense.
What's one thing that people should remember from today's conversation?
Oof. perp DEXs are inevitable as being systemically important financial centers for the new world.
Why do you add the word perp in front?
Or it's just an easy way for people to understand what I'm talking about, but decentralized exchanges, right? Because I mean, and that is, I am underselling it with that very shallow framing because they do so much, right? But that's easy, but people understand what I'm saying immediately. But what I'm really saying is, decentralized exchanges are, I don't think people fully appreciate what these things are. If you can get past the noise and you can, you have the vision to kind of see past all of that, it is very clear that these entities are just going to have such an outsized, not just in terms of money, but they're going to have such an outsized impact on everybody in the world, because every single person in the world with a wallet on a mobile phone now has instant access to financial opportunity. And that is just insanely powerful to think about, right? That has never happened in the past in the world, ever.
Thank you, Anand, for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for eating glass every day, putting in their insanely hard work every day and night to make this industry more accessible and more useful and usable to everyone. And last but not least, thank you for believing in us,
My pleasure.
in me and the When Shift Happens team, and for supporting us in our mission to make crypto folks and Web3 less misunderstood and look more credible to the outside world.
My pleasure. You guys are one of the few brands in crypto that I think do not just represent trust extremely well, but which is more of a perception thing. But I think your follow through when you work with your partners, at least it's very clear with us that you guys really care. And I was just talking to your co-founder before the podcast, and that's one of the things I said to him, was that it is very clear that you guys give a shit, right? It's like, your shit and you give a shit. And that combination is very tough in crypto. So when you find somebody that does both and does them well, you should keep them close, which is why we're partners.
This is the Swiss villager mindset. My word is my bond.
I didn't know that. That's
You
cool.
can, yeah, actually people in Swiss villages, they're, you say one thing, you're just going to do it. Even if you say, let's meet in 3 weeks
Here,
at 7 p.m. and then you don't talk for 3 weeks, and
but you're there.
the same day you say, hey, tonight, good, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem I noticed in big cities and in business a lot, and
in
in this
crypto.
industry a lot.
In crypto, it's just,
Absolutely.
there's no fucking follow through.
Yeah.
People are just,
It's terrible.
it's like you have to follow up with people, you get on calls and he's like, oh, does this time still work? And I'm like, what happened?
Yeah. So, well, yeah, just be reliable and you're on your way there. That's the advice.
I think what we say internally is like, do what you say and say what you do. Very simple. It's not that hard to think about, but the execution,
For most people, it's very hard.
it's so hard. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
No, thank you.
As you probably know by now, I host some of the biggest names in Bitcoin and crypto on my podcast. But a lot of the best stuff never makes it on air. The Shift newsletter is where I share that raw behind-the-scene alpha, the insights, stories, and lessons straight from my guests that you won't hear anywhere else. If you want the real inside take on Bitcoin and crypto, join my newsletter, The Shift, in the description down below.